How is the market in San Diego in July 2022? The median combined home sales price is $860,000, and that's down from the April high water mark of $875,000. Now, combined means single-family detached homes plus condos and attached homes like townhomes. Inventory is slowly increasing. The absorption rate is now at 1.5 months, which means if no new homes hit the market as of today and the rate of buying continued at the same pace, it would take 1.5 months for all the homes to be bought and removed from market. And if you go to the lowest absolute point, which is December 21, 12 days, all of the homes were gone. So a couple things to consider. Of course, in the summer, a little bit more inventory hits the market, more active listings. There's just under 4,000 new listings that just hit the market through June. So more active listings are coming on the market, but also because the interest rates have jumped so rapidly, so fast, a lot of buyers have backed out of the market. So there's not as many buyers picking up homes. So the actual rate of absorption has slowed a little bit because of those two things. More inventory coming on, plus less buyers making offers. One of the big hot button data points that came out was that through June, about 60,000 purchase contracts were canceled nationally, which represented just under 15% of all contracts being canceled. Now that may seem like a lot, but there's a few things to unpack. Of course, it spiked in February, March of 2020 because that was the onset of the pandemic. So around 16 to 70% nationally of all contracts were being canceled because nobody knew it was happening. Everybody really stopped what they were doing and people backed out. Now, along with that, over the last 2 years, anyone who's been in the market knows that if you wanted to have any type of valid offer and get a response, let alone hopefully be in the final running to get an accepted offer, you could not put any contingencies in your offer. That meant no inspection contingency, no appraisal contingency, and sometimes very little or no loan contingency. A lot of people were waiving that, just saying, I hope I get my loan. The important thing to know is the impact of what contingencies do for you and for your offer and how they protect your deposit. So if we get into escrow and you put a deposit into escrow for a home that's accepted, and we find out that there is a foundation issue or the roof is at the end of its life and it's going to be a $20,000 repair and that can't be renegotiated or settled upon and you want to back out of the contract, you would either have to have a contingency saying I found something through an inspection that I otherwise wouldn't have known, and if the seller isn't willing to renegotiate the price to help solve that to move forward mutually, you can walk away and keep your deposit that you put into escrow. Now the last 2 years when there were no contingencies, people were just kind of having to grit their teeth and bear it. They had to go through escrow because they didn't want to lose their deposit. Now out of those 60,000 canceled contracts through June, I think what would be more interesting is to find out how many people walked away and lost their deposit as opposed to how many people actually used their contingencies to cancel those contracts and protect their deposit and walk away. Also important to realize that the moving average has always been about 11 to 13% of canceled contracts. So yeah, right now it spiked to almost 15% in the last month. But again, it's only about 2 to 3% higher than the average moving average besides the big spike that happened in the onset of the pandemic. So it's not too far out of line. It's not as sensational of a number as it seems at first glance. Also, the percent of original list price received is starting to move back down to a normalized number. So in May, it was at 105%. That was coming down off a high point of about 107% list price to sold price ratio. And now through June, it's moved down to about 102.1%. So still, the average winning offer is 2.1% above asking price. But you're starting to see that the waters are starting to mellow a little bit. And it's interesting because I think the effect that's happened over the last 2 years is it's like sitting in a hot tub, it's 104 degrees, and you start to feel like that's the natural water temp and it doesn't feel exceedingly hot. Now, if you were to jump into a pool that was 85 degrees, that would otherwise be a very warm pool, it's going to feel chilly by comparison. So we're coming down off of this boil and getting into a more normalized market, and it's still a hot market and good homes are selling, but even a hot market feels cool compared to the boiling point we were at the last 2 years. So the sky isn't falling, but the ground is shifting, and it's important to know the data that's happening in your micro market, your specific neighborhood, if you're considering buying or selling, really to the date. Anything that's come out in the last 30 to 60 days, and even 60 days right now is changing because it's almost outdated at this point. So you really have to work with someone who knows the data up to date now and knows it in the local market at how things are moving.